Hi everybody, I'm Dr. John Douillard and welcome to LifeSpa.com, where we prove the ancient medical wisdom of Ayurveda with modern science. And today I want to talk about distance healing. I want to actually teach you a distance healing meditation. When I was studying in India in 1986, we would go to visit distance healers. When we'd go talk to them, show them a picture of a loved one, they'd either take your pulse or meditate, and it would create this distance healing effect. It was commonplace in India. It was something that was very, very, very well known. Even today, a study in the UK in the year 2000 found there were actually 14,000 distance healers in the UK, more than there were alternative medicine practitioners. So it's a really popular thing. It's something that's frowned on by the medical and the scientific community, but there is some really interesting science that I want to share with you. And I also want to share with you a distance healing meditation today. So stay tuned for this video. If you like this video and you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. If you're watching us on my website at LifeSpa.com, please sign up for our newsletter so you get this information on a regular basis. And on your way out, check out our Ayurvedic store, where you can get all of our organic Ayurvedic herbs and products and books and tapes and all kinds of things. All right, well, thanks for listening. Let's dig in here. So let's dig into the science, right? There's a lot of science. I know there's a lot of skepticism about this, but let's dig in. In one meta-analysis over 23 different studies with over 3,000 different patients, 57% of those studies showed significant results. In other words, that it's significant, and that's 57% of the time. I think there are reasons why it works sometimes and doesn't work sometimes, and we're going to get into that in this video, which I think is kind of really interesting. Another study they did to kind of rule out the placebo, and this was a randomized double-blind placebo study, which means that's like the gold standard, and they had 40 AIDS patients, and they were given, and half the group was randomly selected to get a healing at a great distance, and the other half didn't get a healing. And for 10 weeks, they went through this process. Some were getting a healing, some didn't getting a healing. This was all across the United States. The AIDS patients didn't know who their healer was. They never met the healer. They never didn't know anything about whether they were getting it or not. At the end of the study, on 10-week study, they found that the group that actually did, in fact, get the healing had significantly less AIDS-defining illnesses. They had significantly less severity of their illness. They had less doctor's visits. They had less hospitalizations. And they had increased mood as a result of that, even though they didn't know they were getting a healing. So that was pretty cool. It was a randomized double-blind study. So that's pretty interesting, right? So it's something we should be able to look at. What I'm really interested in, and I've written some articles on prayer and different things. You can go to my website at lifespa.com and read them. But I also wrote some articles about biophotons. They're interesting things, and this is the mechanism that a lot of science studies are actually pointing to, the mechanism for how distance healing can work, or in fact, how healing can work. So the biophotons are these ultra-weak photon emissions that come out of our DNA, and they're released thousands of them per second, and they're information-carrying particles within our body. They carry our thoughts, they carry information throughout our body, but they're also particles of light, and they actually are released in our body, but they also are transmitted out of our body, and we are receivers for them. So these are traveling at the speed of light at great distances. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, something that he understood, that these photons of light are carrying information at great distances. Well, it turns out that there's some interesting signs that these biophotons, which are information-carrying particles, may be the mechanisms for healing. Like in one study with Reiki, they found that the Reiki, which is the hands-on therapy of letting energy move through your hands, they actually measured that the mechanism for that healing was actually the biophoton emissions. And it's a study that showed that it improved collagen production and supporting joint health. And there's many studies on Reiki, but the mechanism that they're seeing in one of these studies was the biophoton releases. So it's really interesting. There's also something called the bystander phenomena. Another study showed that when the biophotons were being released, that they would actually repair damage associated nearby in the person next to you, for example. And the bystander phenomenon means you're releasing these photon emissions out of your body, but they're affecting people in the room next to you. In this study, it was shown to repair nerves and repair cell membranes, restore normal cellular function. And what's interesting about that is that the biophotons aren't always beneficial. There's other studies that show that the bystander phenomenon can actually have negative consequences. They had one monkey who had cancer and was irradiated to fix his cancer. They put a healthy monkey next to that monkey, and within 48 hours, the healthy monkey was showing real signs of sickness, and they measured the mechanism for the damage, and it was a significant amount of increase of these biophotons. So biophotons are released because of damage of the DNA, and those are what we call incoherent biophotons. So the more damaging things you do to your DNA, the more stressed you're going to be. People can feel that stress. Your body's going to respond to that stress by getting sick. All these things begin to happen. But Elizabeth Blackburn, who did the Nobel Prize-winning research on telomeres, found that that the telomeres, which are the chromosomal caps that protect your DNA, they shorten as you age. They shorten when you're under stress. And she found that when you meditate, they get longer. She found when you eat processed food, they shorten. When you don't exercise, they shorten. When you exercise properly, they lengthen. When you love, care, and give in kind to others, they lengthen. So our DNA doesn't have to always be under this constant damage. There's many things that we can do. So when you meditate, yoga, and breathe, what happens is you dial down the DNA damage and you dial down the incoherent biophotons, and you're left with this very, very subtle, smaller, not as abundant, not as big and loud, but this underlying stream of biophotons. And what's interesting is the science has pointed to those that may be the carriers of the information that could be the healing mechanism for distance healing. Okay, and I'm definitely stretching the science a little bit here, but if you go to the article associated with this video, you'll read and get all the science. You can go to the links and you can make the decision for yourself. But it's a really interesting look at this because we do know that this distance healing works. We don't know why it works, and that's what we're trying to figure out. So what's also interesting is that something called the Bokon hypothesis is that the biophotons are affected by our intention, right? So that's the whole idea of prayer. When you have a prayer and you meditate, you create coherent biophotons because you're in a meditative calm or you're in a prayer state, and then you introduce an intention that may carry these coherent biophotons, which have been shown to studies to do repair. Incoherent biophotons have been shown to do damage, right? So it's really sort of interesting. They did a study and they found that visual imagery, if you have a visual imagery, it actually increases the amount of biophoton releases in your brain compared to someone who was not having visual stimulation. They did another study and they had someone who was doing visual imagery in one room that actually had an increase in the visual imagery, the biophotons of the person in the next room. So we are all connected. It's, a lot of ways to describe the biophotons is, let's say, maybe you and I are going to have lunch in a week, and I've never met you, but I'm going to meet you for the first time in a week. So I'm thinking about, I'm going to go to lunch, I got to meet you here and do this thing. So we're having this intention to meet each other. Well, our biophotons carry this intention to that other person. And so we have been interacting for a week or two, getting preparation to meet each other. So our biophotons have already met, interacted with each other, carrying information back and forth. I know, this is a quantum world that we live in. And so when we actually meet, we've already kind of have this feeling we know each other. And that's sort of how this works. So stay with me and read the article for the science to get into that. So intention is a powerful thing, right? There was a study done in Tokyo where in 2006, 2,000 people creating an intention to change the crystals that are made from water all the way in an ice cold room in California. 2,000 people having this intention, and some were giving the intention, some were not giving the intention, and it was a randomized study like that. And they had 100 independent judges looking at the crystal. So when that water went from water to a crystal to ice, they looked at the quality of the crystals. And there's some interesting studies historically that show that when you're under a lot of stress, and you incur a lot of stress in the environment, that the crystals would actually be negatively affected by that stress, right? Sort of like if I took a glass of yogurt like this and I yelled and screamed at the glass of yogurt, studies show that the bugs in that yogurt would actually morph and feel the impressions of that stress. Sort of a similar kind of thing. Well, it turned out that the judges looked at the crystals, and the crystals that were that significantly more beautiful when there was an intention designed versus the crystal that did not have the intention, which is kind of a really interesting thing. So there you have sort of the idea of the mechanism of how this works. Now we have to get into the actual meditation of how to do this. And you can go to LifeSpa.com and read this article, which I give you a step-by-step guide of how to do the meditation as well. But I need to kind of just share with you a little bit more of the Ayurvedic understanding of how this works. In Ayurveda, the cause of disease is called pragya parad, which means the mistake of the intellect, where the intellect starts to think of itself as separate from the underlying field of intelligence from which we come. So in Ayurveda, when the quantum fields of intelligence or consciousness become matter or the physiology, and then the physiology forgets that it's part of that field, that is the cause of disease, all disease. And they say that if you could put your attention at the junction point between the field and the physiology, or the consciousness and matter, you could then bring the awareness from the field of intelligence into the physiology and restore the memory of pure consciousness and initiate a quantum healing, spontaneous healing effect, a placebo effect even, if you will, because they're very powerful, right? So turns out that what exists at the junction between field and physiology is light, photons. And you and I produce ultra-weak photon emissions, or biophotons, thousands of them per second from our DNA. Some of them can be incoherent because of DNA damage, but when you calm yourself down, you produce a hum of coherent DNA that, according to the science, is affected by our intention. And that may be right there the mechanism of prayer and the mechanism of distance healing. So the meditation I'm going to teach you is a meditation that allows you to calm yourself down and then provide an intention. Now also, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is a book, an ancient yogic textbook, about introducing a thought, a sutra or a mantra, if you will, and if you introduce that thought and meditate on that thought thought can somewhat become a reality. And they give a list of all the different sutras that have different effects when you meditate on them. And one of the sutras that I thought was really interesting that I want to use in this meditation is a sutra called Inner Light. So in the Vedic textbooks written thousands of years ago, it says that when you meditate on the word inner light, or the words inner light, it increases the knowledge of the subtle, the hidden, and the remote. Now the subtle, when you look at the commentary, it says that the subtle means as subtle as atoms. Photons, biophotons, which by definition, a photon is a particle of light and a waveform of light. It literally exists at the junction between a field, a wave of light, and a particle of light. It literally exists at the junction between field and physiology. So by meditating on the word inner light, you increase the knowledge of the subtle, which is as subtle as atoms, which are what photons are. The hidden, which is the hidden power of our intention. We don't realize the power of our own intention. Now we have science to show that the intention is actually quite powerful, and the biophotons may in fact be at least one of the mechanisms for our intention. And then remote related to distance healing. That this effect can happen at great distances at the speed of light because the photons are traveling at the speed of light at great distance. And this is something that Einstein talked about many, many years ago called spooky action at a distance, right? So here we go. So the meditation is going to be create your intention. I want to heal Bob somewhere. I want to heal the country. That would be good too. Whatever it is that you want to heal, set that intention. And then we're going to do a breathing technique called Bhastrika. I wrote an article called The 1 Minute Meditation with Bhastrika. And it's a breathing technique I've been using for decades and decades. You breathe 30 breaths, deep in and deep out, like a bellows, in, out, and then you be still, and then you mentally repeat the word inner light with that intention to heal Bob or whoever we're trying to heal. So that's as simple as it's going to be. We can do it all together if you like. So we'll do 30 breaths, and then I'll kind of walk you through the meditation part, but it's very, very simple. So we sit up straight. We're going to do a bellows breath, sometimes with this breath having a tissue because it's a big breath through your nose, in and out through your nose. It looks something like this. Like that. So we're going to do that 30 times together. So everybody get ready, get yourself settled, get some tissues if you like, and off we go. This is our distance healing, and this may be, why sometimes prayer works. There's lots of science of why prayer works. I've written about that. Go to my website, LifeSpa.com, type in prayer. And sometimes it doesn't work. Could it be because we're creating either incoherent biophoton release or coherent biophoton release? So the key is to get yourself into the right place where that intention is carried by this biophotons in a positive way versus, being so stressed out that you're not even helping to heal yourself. You're maybe even causing more, self-harm. And we all know, right? That stress, when I'm stressed out, I know it's not good for me. We have good science behind that. So the yoga, the breathing, the meditation is the ways, the tools we use in Ayurveda to calm ourselves down. I call it establishing the eye of the storm, becoming calm, and then allowing us to slowly build the activity around the calm. So we're not living in the stress. We have stress, we do things in our life, but we're coming from that place of composure and calm. So I hope you're all ready now. So here we're going to go. We're going to do 30 of these. Set your intention of who you want to heal. It's a good idea to just close your eyes. And then we're going to do 30 seconds of Bhastrika. And once we stop, we'll be really still, gently, mentally repeat the words inner light with the intention to heal whoever. All right, here we go. Keep breathing, that's 20, but maybe if you're getting dizzy, stop and just be still. But if you're okay, keep breathing a few more times. When you get to 30, stop, close your eyes and be still. You should feel like a little buzz in your brain and feeling a little vibrating in your body. Mentally repeat the word. Set your intention to heal whoever. And mentally repeat the word inner light, inner light, inner light, inner light. Just keep mentally repeating that word. And you stay with that for about a minute. And if you wanted to do more of that, you could breathe again, do another 30 seconds of the Bhastrika or 30 breaths of the Bhastrika, and then close your eyes again, and you can reintroduce the sutra inner light and your intention again. And you can do a couple of rounds of that. It can take a minute, or it can take 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how you like, and you can do it as often as you like. It's a great, great meditation, great science behind the Bhastrika. It's been shown to increase gamma wave activity, which they call it the spiritual wave pattern, which it creates a super high vibration, which is obviously why we're using that breathing technique for a distance healing effect. So I hope you like this video. If you like it, I guess again, if you're watching this on YouTube, please sign up for our subscribe to our channel. And if you're watching this at LifeSpa.com, please sign up for our newsletter. Get this information every week in your inbox, and check out our store on your way out. Thanks for listening. See you all next week. I'm Dr. John Douillard. Do you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe and share.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa, where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at lifespa.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.